Here's Mike Donehey. Hey, buddy. Welcome back to the Sports Spectrum podcast.
Your listeners are going, you keep bringing back this guy who doesn't play any sports. I played high school sports.
I just like talking to you.
I belong.
It's a podcast. I just like talking to interesting people. You're an interesting guy.
Thank you.
We were starting our conversation before we even hit record about broadcast pairs in the NFL, and because we're sitting here wearing headsets, kind of like if you were doing an NFL game. And I said, yeah, you and I would make a good pair on Monday Night Football. And then you brought up who your favorite color guy is.
Yeah, you were saying you could be Joe Buck and I'll be Troy Aikman. I said, no, you are Jim Nantz and I'm Tony Romo. Who I really enjoy.
You like Romo?
Yeah, and your feedback was that people don't like how cheerleader he is.
I think the feedback that I've seen, it's social media, so take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
But it's Tony Romo was always the cheerleader who would call the play out before it actually happened. But then a few years ago, something switched. This is just I don't agree with this actually, but Tony has become more of a fan, and less, I don't know, nuts and bolts and like really inside football. He's like always cheering and here we go, Jim. This is exciting. Here we go. And I think people think that he's become too fanish for the game.
I think about the intro to a book called Blue Like Jazz, actually, as you say that. And he talks about
Donald Miller, right?
Yeah, he said, I used to not like God because he doesn't resolve. And then he goes, I used to not like jazz music because it doesn't resolve. And then I was outside this theater and I watched this guy play the saxophone with his eyes closed for 30 minutes. After that, I liked jazz music.
Because he appreciated it more.
And he said sometimes you have to watch someone else enjoying something to enjoy it.
Huh.
And so I feel like with Tony Romo, that's exactly what you want in a broadcaster.
Yeah.
You want him loving the game and enjoying it. And you still got Jim Nantz there to tell you exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. I think football is there. It's an entertainment industry.
Of course. Yeah.
So
they It's an interesting thing to think about as I talk to you because you've been connected into this sports world a lot more recently in maybe the last 4 or 5 years. Is that fair?
Yeah.
As you've been coming to some of our conferences, our pro sport conferences, do you watch sports differently now over the last 4 or 5 years because of your maybe unique connections to some of the athletes that you've gotten to meet?
Yeah. Now I'm watching it going, don't die, don't die, don't die. Please don't die.
Right.
Please don't die.
Seriously.
And obviously the DeMar Hamlin thing, even more so. You're going,
right.
Holy cow.
Like what these guys are doing every time they go out on the field. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we became friends with the Tannehills doing this summer camp, and we're watching a Titans game, and Ryan gets hurt, and my daughter's going, is Mr. Ryan okay? Where before they
But
wouldn't
that
have
humanizes
cared.
it.
Yes.
That's real.
I think that is the more I've met, musicians who have a platform or artists who have a platform, the more I can humanize people. I think, you want to really know who a man is. It's like, how well does he treat the person he perceives as beneath him? And ironically, the more I meet people who used to wow me and they humanize, it actually helps me see not only them, but everybody. Like, helps me see the mechanic working on my tire and helps me see we're here in the hotel, but, to see the hotel staff as just as valuable as a quarterback who makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. And I think that's really difficult for us because one of the reasons I think we love fame and we love sports and we love being a part of something bigger than ourselves is because we're made for the glory of God. Right? Mm-hmm. This is why I'd meet a kid in a signing line and they're just freaking out to meet me. And I'm going, man, this is going to be a big old disappointment for you. But they're trembling with excitement because fame, it's like the artificial fix for what we're longing for, which is I want to be around greatness and fame because we're actually made for the glory of God. And so if we're not finding it in God, the cheapest, easiest substitute is fame from famous people.
Yeah, that's good. He's Mike Donehey. He's joining us here on Sports Spectrum. How is the post-10th Avenue North life treating you? Last time we had you on, you were just in the mix of figuring out this sort of final tour and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm in the weird phase of an athlete who has suddenly retired and is going, I still got some left in the tank, coach, because I'm still writing all these songs. And so, putting things out as a solo artist and, the band, we're still great friends. And so there's always that, like, why didn't we? I feel what Brady felt when he, came out of retirement and then, he retired and then came right out of it. We're still all waiting for him to announce that he's
Is he really done? Who knows,
unretire,
right?
And I get it because you go, man, but I love doing that,
Yeah. Interesting time period for you. I'm wondering, what is God teaching you in your early 40s now, post 10th Avenue North? We're going to talk about your book in a second. Maybe that's part of your answer.
Yeah.
But what's he showing you now compared to what maybe you were learning when you were in the midst of touring all the time and putting out new songs every year?
The thing you can't learn in that season. So there's something you can't learn when you're being used a lot.
That's
and
good.
You're having a lot of success and you're doing a lot. The one thing you can't learn in that season is your belovedness apart from your usefulness.
Say that again. Because I think people who are listening, they might hit the 15-second go back on their podcast, but I think you need to say that again.
Let me say it this way. I'm learning that my loveliness to God doesn't rise and fall with my usefulness.
Yeah.
That I'm not used. I'm not lovely because I'm used. Sometimes God uses me because he loves me. And the only way to really get that into your bones is to go through a season where you're not really doing anything. Which, is why we're commanded to rest one day a week. Is, I think, for God to say, I need you to know that I love you apart. And and I wrote this in my first book, and other people have said this, but it always is such a surprise to me that Jesus is baptized and the voice of the Father says, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. He says that before Jesus does any ministry.
Right.
And I think that's on purpose.
Yeah. He didn't accomplish nothing in the sense of going out and doing his healings and the miracles and laying hands on people. He hadn't done any of that yet.
If he had already done that and then hears the Father's voice, then we would be left to go, as long as I'm doing all those things, then the Father is pleased with me.
Yeah.
But the Father goes, no, I need you to know you're not going to do all those things for my validation. You're going to do all those things from my validation. So I'm getting a really beautiful moment to go, all right, Mike, you get to really soak in the truth that you are loved and valuable to God apart from what you do.
And I think being a dad helps you see that even more because there's nothing that our kids, our girls, because you have 4 girls, right?
Yes.
And I have one. I only have one child, but she's a girl. There's nothing that our girls could do that would change how much we love them. Nothing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
0. And yet we still want them to do good things and to be well behaved and to chase after God and to have a good life. But nothing would change the fact on how we would love them. I believe that's the same way with God with us. Mm-hmm. Like he still wants what's best for us, and he would love to see us obey him and follow him and tell people about him. But his love for us is unchanging, right?
Yeah. And, it might have been an overstatement to say you can't learn that lesson when you're in the midst of being successful. God can do whatever he wants. But, it's real. My daughters will know that I love them when I tell them I love them. And I say, why do you love me? Well, because you got straight A's. Why do No, I love you because I love you. Yeah. Which is actually the safest reason.
Yeah, because you're my beloved daughter in whom I'm well pleased, right? Yeah. Same thing. You're a musician, songwriter, maybe future broadcaster in the NFL. Yes. Who knows? You're also an author.
Former high school athlete, guys. Okay.
You know what? I want to go there first. It's funny you said that because I want to talk about your book and I want to get into that. But you mentioned Damar Hamlin earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And I forgot I wanted to ask you about this because you're watching that happen on Monday night with, the Bills and the Bengals, and it's a terrible thing to see. We didn't know what was really happening, but he was declared, I guess, dead twice, and they had to resuscitate him over 9 minutes. But that brought back a lot of memories, I have to imagine, for yourself.
Yes. And obviously I didn't post anything about this because it would have felt exploitive. But now, enough time's passed and he's seems to be recovering. So
he's a miracle. Yeah.
You know, I do want to put this out there that I one-upped Damar Hamlin, and I was declared dead 3 times. So
3 times.
So
you told this story the first time you were on our podcast, but I don't think people really understood the depths of what you just said.
Yeah.
3 times you were declared dead.
Yeah, the paramedic, I got in a really bad car accident in high school, and the paramedic came back a couple weeks later to my dad's dealership. He was selling cars at the time, and gave my dad a whole play-by-play. And I guess when they showed up, you know, my heart was stopped. And so, and they had to resuscitate me, and then twice more in the ambulance to the hospital, my heart stopped again. Wow. And the 3rd time, before they resuscitated me, I was transported into heaven, and I saw Jesus no, I'm just kidding.
It wasn't that deep.
That part's not true. Although I could sell a lot of books if I held to that story.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Let me tell you what Jesus looks like. I've seen
him. Yeah, I've seen heaven. This is what it is.
But yeah, 3 times. Wow. Yeah, watching the Damar Hamlin thing, number 1, a bit triggered, obviously.
Yeah.
But number 2, also going, God can do this. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. You are a walking miracle. If you're going to have been declared dead 3 times and you're here sitting here talking to me.
And you know what's so funny is people will go, oh, that must be so nice. So nice to die. Yeah, because now you know that you're here for a reason. Obviously, God has a reason for you.
Yeah.
And you know what's so funny about that? That was never what I took away from it. As I was ruminating on having died and God miraculously, quote unquote, keeping me alive.
Yeah.
The thing I kept coming back to is there's this little line in Job where it says, if it was God's intention and he withdrew his breath, all mankind would return to the dust.
Yeah.
That's how in control God is.
Yeah.
And you know what that left me with? I went, oh no, I'm not a walking miracle. Everyone is a walking miracle.
That's right.
If you are breathing right now, it's because God still has a plan and purpose for you to be here. And it actually caused me not to think, oh, look at me, I'm a walking miracle. I have these great plans from God. It went, if you are alive, the only reason you're alive is because God is still telling your lungs to breathe. So what are you going to do with it?
It's your breath in our lungs.
Yeah.
So we pour out our praise. I don't think when we say that, I think we don't really realize that's what it is. Like, we should be praising him because every single breath that we take is in essence a miracle.
Yeah, Colossians says he holds all things together. And I am never living in the proper awe of that single statement.
Yeah. Until you really, I mean, even talking to you right now, it's when you start to think about the vastness of something like that.
Yeah.
Right? What's a more loving way to disagree, Mike Donehey? Because you wrote a book called Grace in the Gray. And I'm excited for this second book. It came out back in January. And I think it's timely. You know, that's what I think about. You know, I thought your first book was very timely, Finding God's Life for My Will. Grace in the Gray is a great title, but the subtitle is what really it's about, right?
Yeah.
A more loving way to disagree. And we feel like, I don't know, it just maybe feels like right now this is the time when everybody feels like they have to disagree. I don't think we need to. I just think everybody's got a voice somewhere, whether it's social media or elsewhere, to feel like they have to be a contrarian or come up with, I mean, that's the ESPN model, if we're being honest, Mike, right now.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all about first take and what's your take, and then I'm going to counter take that and come up with something that's different so we can disagree and argue about Tony Romo or the Dallas Cowboys or whatever.
Nuance is highly unentertaining.
Very much so. Very much so.
Polarized, aggressive overstatement makes for great conflict, which creates interest.
Yeah.
And so what we have is you just have all these talking heads on TV, social media, where it's all about not listening to the other side and just doubling down on your side.
Completely.
So that you can grow an audience. Because being nuanced gets you shot in the foot. I assimilate it to Jesus. I write in the book that Jesus loved a bad reputation. Jesus kept shooting himself in the foot.
Yeah.
Like just when he starts, eating with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes, you go, okay, I see where this is going. He's about these people. Well, then, because he's now, distanced himself from the religious elite. They're going, you're dirty, unclean. Yeah. What are you doing? Then he goes and he keeps having dinner with Pharisees. And in that culture, to eat with someone was to say, you are my people.
Yeah.
And so to put it in our terms, it would be like he's going and sitting with prostitutes. He's going and sitting with, whoever you would think is not
the lowest of low, whatever. Yeah.
I would say it this way: who's not in?
Yeah.
Like in your heaven, who's not in?
Mm.
And that's who Jesus is sitting and eating with.
The abuser or whatever it is.
Just everybody. And that really hits me hard. And I guess the book really was born out of, Mike, who are you to talk about grace in the gray and a more loving way to disagree? I go, well, I have a unique position where I've played in probably over 1,000 churches.
Yep.
In, 15 different countries. And the thing about music is it's so maddeningly subjective. You have to learn to be disagreed with to write music, because people go, I hate that guitar part. Well, it's right. You can't argue that. You go, oh, you don't like it? Okay, well.
So subjective.
Yes. And so it's taught me. And then when I apply that to singing about Jesus, you know what I've always noticed about our concerts? You always get people, all these different people from all these different churches who usually would never sit in a service together because they have differing thoughts on baptism, and they have differing thoughts on women leadership, and they have differing thoughts on this and that, whatever it is.
Sure.
Or free will and predestination or whatever it is. And yet at a concert, they all come into the same room. And it always grieved me, because we're told Jesus is always praying for unity.
Yeah.
And I go, could it be that we're making unnecessary divisions amongst ourselves over non-essential items?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a call, number one, to shake us up and say, hey, what really are the essentials? And quit doubling down on non-essentials and making them seem like they're essentials when they're not.
We do that, especially on social media. It feels like we elevate these what feels like it's an important issue for that person, obviously, but in the grand scheme of things, is it really that important? Yes. And I'm sticking probably primarily to the church and to faith and to Jesus, not just a worldly perspective on things. But we do this in other areas too. I think you just mentioned sports. Like, what's the great unifier in many ways in the society that we live in? It's concerts and it's sports.
Yeah.
You go to an event and there's people from every walk, every creed, every race, every color, high-fiving, hugging, cheering for the same thing. And you feel like, man, wouldn't it be great if that could transfer into everything else?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where we don't all have to agree on everything, but we can high-five each other and love each other.
No, in fact, and here's something that I've found a lot of people haven't considered, is that we think of unity as the removal of disagreement, the absence of dissent.
Yeah.
When actually true unity is the presence of disagreement. It's the hostility of our disagreement has been removed.
Right.
Ephesians says he's broken down the walls of hostility. So there's still disagreement. In fact, if everyone around you in your life always agrees with you 100% of the time, you're not in a relationship with anyone but yourself.
Correct. And I was going to say, all you got to do is say marriage, and I think we know what that means. Yeah.
If I'm praying to God and he always agrees with me 100% of the time, then I'm probably not in a relationship with God.
Nope.
I'm probably praying to myself.
Yep.
So, and in Ephesians 4, Paul says that God's given apostles, prophets, teachers, shepherds, and evangelists to build up the body of Christ, that they may attain all unity. And I go, wait a second. You ever try to get in a church with all 5 of those guys?
Yeah. Good luck getting full unity.
So I go, oh, wait a second. So that means real unity is going to have conflict in it. It's going to have conflict because an apostle and a shepherd are going to be arguing about what's most important. Yeah. And Paul goes, you want real supernatural unity? You need space for disagreement. So then the whole thing becomes our process as Christians, and this is what the book is really about, is it's not about just merely learning the truth and aggressively speaking it at people.
Right.
It's learning that our position and our posture are actually equally important.
Yeah.
Okay, so our band got picketed. Okay, so
really,
not a lot of football teams get picketed. I mean, I guess you kind of do by the other team's fans, but our band got picketed, and I'm like, what are they? What's going on?
What are they protesting here? Yeah.
Well, they said that we were playing the devil's music.
The devil's music.
Yeah, because I guess we've said that we listen to the Beatles and we listen to this, so we've been influenced by harbingers of Satan. And so our music is now tainted and laced by devil worshippers, and so you can't listen to our music. It's going to send you to hell. So
it feels a little aggressive.
It's a little aggressive, and it actually, we either give Satan too much credit or not enough. Those are the two ways we go wrong. Okay, so this group I think was giving him too much credit. So I go out and I talk to him. I go, hey guys, how's it going? Well, you're playing the devil's music. That's what's going. And some people have accused me of characterizing these guys. Let me just say that I'm being very generous in my portrayal.
You're portraying.
I said, you're playing the devil's music. That's going. I said, well, why do you say that? And then he doesn't even answer. He just starts screaming at these girls going into the concert. You're dressed like whores in Babylon. And I go, so hey, how do you feel like this is going? How do you feel like this approach is working?
Yeah.
And what's he say? He goes, well, it doesn't matter.
Right. It's his opinion.
He goes, no, it's not his opinion. He goes, I'm telling you the truth. Right? And I go, you guys sing Amazing Grace in your church? He goes, well, of course we do. I go, historians actually argue about where that tune came from.
Yes.
That John Newton actually wrote the words, and then later the tune was applied, and some historians even think it could have been a popular bar tune of the time. He's like, that's a lie straight from the devil.
I love how your portrayal of this guy keeps getting further and further, into a heavier accent.
Yes. So obviously we didn't make a lot of progress.
Yes.
What bothered me about what they were doing, because a lot of people would say, hey, if I tell you the truth, it doesn't matter how I say it, because if you're offended by the truth, that's on you. My job is just to tell you the truth. No. Paul says, for the Christian at least, Paul says over and over things like, speak the truth in love. Yes. He says, if I had all these prophecies and spoken tongues of angels but had not love, I'm nothing. Well, people go, but to love someone is to tell them the truth. I go, okay, how about this? When Paul talks to Timothy about correcting people, he goes, here it is, Timothy. The Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome. Mm-hmm. So now we're starting to get into it.
Sounds like your friend Harvey was a little quarrelsome.
Yeah, and we go. Well, I'm not quarrelsome. You're never going to know if you're quarrelsome. It's like greed. Nobody thinks they're greedy. Right. You're going to have to ask someone else if you're quarrelsome. Yes. Then he says, be kind to everyone. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Tender-hearted.
That starts to sound like my posture. And then he says, patiently enduring evil. Okay, I don't like evil. I don't like enduring it. I certainly don't want to do it patiently. He says, be able to teach, which means don't open your mouth about things you don't know about. And then the last thing, this is the buzzer, the kicker. He says, correct your opponents. There it is. Yes, see? Correct them. I'm correcting them. I'm out there.
It's right there in the Bible.
There picketing them. He said, correct your opponents with all gentleness. And I looked up the Greek there, and it turns out it's translated with all gentleness. And then this is really where it comes together. He says, perhaps God will grant them repentance leading to the truth. Okay, you are never going to lovingly disagree if you think it's up to you to change people.
Right.
But if perhaps God will grant them repentance, that repentance is actually a gift from God, and perhaps God will give it, Suddenly I can be kind when I want to rip someone's head off. Suddenly I can endure evil patiently. Suddenly I will shut my mouth if I don't know what I'm talking about. Suddenly I'm less quarrelsome, and suddenly I can correct people gently because there isn't this pressure riding on the moment.
That's good. I like the quote that's on your Amazon page. The more I make room for God to disagree with me, the more I give permission to others to do the same.
So Proverbs says, a wise man loves correction.
Yeah.
Foolish man hates it. This is why you always see quarterbacks on their iPads. What is that? They love correction.
Yeah.
Why? Because they know if I don't love correction, I'm going to keep getting sacked. I'm going to keep making incompletions.
Yeah.
And yet when it comes to interpersonal relationships, we don't take that over. We don't go, tell me where I'm missing it. Tell me why. Why? Because my wife has really helped me lovingly disagree. She loves to disagree with me.
I don't doubt that.
So
if it's a loving marriage, that's probably the case.
And probably the first 10 years of our marriage,
yeah.
When she corrected me, I'll be honest, I did not apply this Proverbs verse. I would get either really defensive or really defeated. And I think a lot of guys listening to this can empathize with that. Like, defensive is, well, you don't understand. And we suddenly give all the reasons why we did that thing. Like, well, I had this going on, and I didn't mean it. And your wife, newsflash, she doesn't want to hear your excuses. She just wants you to hear you say, yes, I was wrong.
Yep. Which
is the last thing you want to do. You're super defensive. Or, I can never do anything right. I'm just the worst. I can't make you happy. I can't do this. Well, the gospel actually heals both defensiveness and defeatedness. It says, when you get defensive, it goes, why are you being so defensive? You have a defender. Why are you being so defensive? You are so bad. This is very Tim Keller-esque. You are so bad, Jesus had to die for you. Who are you trying to convince?
Right.
You know?
Yes.
You Christians ought to be like, of course I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I actually say in the book, the 4 magic words that Christians get to say that other people have a hard time with is, I could be wrong.
Yep.
Because you're like, I was so wrong. God himself had to die for me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about everything. Right? So you're not defensive. You have a defender. And unfortunately, the gospel robs you of sulking in defeatedness, because it says, though you were so bad he had to die for you, you are so loved he was glad to die for you. Which means,
it's powerful.
Which means you have victory even in your defeat. And so it robs you of getting to just sulk in that.
I love the timeliness of the book. I told you when I saw you yesterday that Unity Hymn, which is one of your new songs, is on repeat on the Romano worship playlist right now.
Go.
And I think people, if they haven't heard some of the solo music that you put out the last few years, need to go check it out, because it's really good stuff. And that Unity Hymn, I think, is so powerful because of what we just talked about, the importance of unity within the body, and hymns are wonderful, and just bring them all back, man. And you went right there with it. So Grace in the Gray, Unity Hymn, my favorite Mike Donehey song right now. What else can we promote? Are you going to be in a movie or something? Like, you've pretty much done everything else. What else we got, Mike?
I'm trying to work on the Irwin. The Irwin brothers just came out with the Jesus Revolution movie.
Did you see it, by the way?
I haven't seen it yet.
I saw it. It's amazing.
They sent me a link. It's on my phone. I could watch it.
And you still haven't watched it? Come on, Mike.
I'm the worst. But they were telling me they just love how it came out. And
yeah, I know Andy Irwin pretty well.
The first thing they worked for ESPN.
Yes, they did. That's why Andy and I connected that way.
The first thing they did outside of operating cameras for ESPN was our band's music video.
I heard that.
For Love Is Here. So
yes,
I take a trip with Andy every year, and I go to Andy. I was a theater major, Andy. Put me in, coach.
I tried to get him to do something sports. Maybe we can get him to put you and me calling some high school football game.
That's incredible.
Come on, Mike. Let's both bombard Andy Irwin right now on text.
And can my name be Roni Tomo?
Yes, be Roni Tomo. I'll be Racing Germano.
I'll just go, isn't this great?
Isn't this great, Jim?
Isn't this great?
Yeah, isn't this great? This was great, by the way, talking to you. Always appreciate you, my friend. Congrats on the new book, and let's do it again soon.
Thanks, Jason.
You got it, buddy.